Did you know that up to 50% of active women struggle with menstrual irregularities? Welcome back to the Nourishing Women Podcast. That is exactly what we're going to address in today's podcast episode. If you are a fit, active woman, you love to exercise, yet you don't have a monthly reliable period, I wonder if you've ever considered that how you eat and how you exercise may be playing a role, especially if you are having a challenging time getting pregnant. Now, I want to just kind of start today's conversation by addressing what do I mean by fit girl? What do I mean by someone who's fit and healthy and active? So let's talk about it. I would describe a fit girlie, a fit woman, as someone who plans their exercise in advance. Now, most active people have to do that. I know that I plan my exercise, but there's a flexibility and an ability to listen to my body that I feel like fit girls with infertility may struggle with. If you plan your exercise in advance, you always stick to it no matter what. That's the kind of person I want to talk to today. You go hard always. You go 110%. Even if, again, you're sick, you don't feel very well, maybe you are struggling with a lot of stress in your life, and you take out all of your stress on exercise. You don't modify. You're always in competition with yourself and with others around you, and you always push things to extreme. Does that sound like you? You always go when you've planned to exercise, even if you feel like shit, like I just shared. You probably also rarely take rest days. Or something I'm seeing all the time lately is this active rest days. So maybe you don't, do your typical running training for a marathon, or your CrossFit, or your HIIT style exercises, or your strength training with Tabatas in between your sets. But you, on your rest days, are still walking 15, 20,000 steps. Does that sound like you? You feel guilty on rest days too. You have a really challenging time. I have a client just the other day who shared with me, it is so hard to not exercise because I immediately feel such intense negative thoughts about my body. It feels as if I've gained 50 pounds in 1 hour if I don't go exercise. I wonder if you can relate. You also probably, many HAers can relate to this. You fidget, you stand, you walk, you'll do anything to avoid sitting or avoid resting. Being someone who sits and watches TV, that's really hard for you. And while I understand that you have just always viewed yourself as this fit, active, strong, disciplined person, that may be the very reason you cannot get pregnant. So if you are unfamiliar with period loss or period irregularities caused from a condition called hypothalamic amenorrhea, let's just real quick do a debrief on that because I think that's important if you've never heard of that before. That is the people that I work with. I work exclusively with women who have lost their periods or who have irregular periods from a very unique hormone condition called hypothalamic amenorrhea. And what makes this condition so incredibly unique and specific is that it is directly caused from you under eating and over exercising, putting too much stress on the body. While you can lose your period from being underweight, you can have this also happen at any body size. And you can also lose it just from simply under eating. But I do think that most people who struggle with HA have this really strong tendency to be an over-exerciser, to be someone, as I was describing before, you think of yourself as the fit girly. I bet your friends, your family members, your coworkers, your partner would also describe you the exact same way, right? Rain or shine, you were always exercising. And these are the people who tend to struggle the most with hypothalamic amenorrhea, who struggle the most with period irregularities, and who may very well have no idea that may be the very thing that's making it very hard for them to conceive or having unexplained infertility. Now, I want to be really thoughtful here. Infertility is such a hard conversation to have because it is such a personal, deep, vulnerable conversation. But there is a lot of information out there telling people that, and I can say this really confidently, I work with so many clients that are just told from their doctor the only answer to their infertility is going through IVF. And it is incredible that we have that as an option. It is a miracle option. And hypothalamic amenorrhea is simply a case where we need to eat more and exercise less to get our periods back. IVF is not needed. you can get pregnant naturally by getting your period back. So if you are a fit girly and you've never even considered that maybe your, period that's been gone for years, or you got off birth control recently and you haven't had your period back, or even if you just have menstrual irregularities, meaning that maybe you have a period every 45, 60 days, 90 days, you would describe your period as like, you kind of never know when it's going to happen. It's unpredictable, it's unreliable, it's infrequent. That is important to address because that may very well be the thing that's leading to your unexplained infertility. In fact, the less you ovulate, the less often chances you're going to have to try to conceive, right? I want you to consider, could your exercise that you feel like is so necessary to be this healthy person you want to be, is that the very thing that's preventing you from your goals of getting pregnant? And let me be crystal clear. I get that taking away exercise altogether will feel impossible for you, and it may very well actually be impossible. Years of working with clients in period recovery has shown me that asking you to simply stop exercise altogether is so much easier said than done. Like I said a little bit ago that, HA recovery work is simply eat more, exercise less, but it is obviously not simple. The reason why we struggle with our relationships with food, with exercise, with our bodies, it is incredibly complex. So while it is simple to eat more, exercise less, if you're listening to this, that it is so hard. If you cannot simply take a rest day from exercise without immense guilt, shame, having to go for a walk to kind of deal with your anxiety about it, this is who I'm talking to. This is something I want to talk to you about. I get that is easier said than done to take away the exercise. And while technically speaking, the gold standard to getting your period back from this condition called hypothalamic amenorrhea is to completely pause all exercise, that may or may not be possible for you. What I've learned from clients is that for many of you, exercise, like the reason why you are this fit, healthy girl, is because it is the one and only coping mechanism in your life. You probably even feel like you control your life more with exercise than you even do with food. I often find for my clients, like changing their eating is much, much easier than changing the exercise. If it is your one and only coping mechanism for the stress and anxiety in your life, it would probably feel very out of control to lose exercise, right? It's really your only sense of control in a life that feels very much out of control. And yet, period recovery asks that we trust our bodies and trust that we can come back to a more strenuous exercise routine when the time is right. We believe here in a philosophy called wellness without obsession. And part of that, of course, is moving your body because it feels good to move your body. I want to be so clear here that I love exercise and I do not want to take away exercise from you long term. In the grand scheme of your life, I want you to be an active, healthy, strong person. I just also want you to trust your body and know that there's a time and place for exercise, and simply hypothalamic amenorrhea or a period loss caused from dieting and exercise is not that time. It is not the time to push hard and to push so intensely on your body. The truth is that your body desperately needs this break. It's sending every single possible signal to you that your body's in survival. That's why you have a missing period or a super irregular period. It's also probably why you struggle with libido, going to the bathroom, bloating. You struggle with your energy. You probably wake up every day and feel so tired and fatigued. All of these symptoms are a condition of the energy imbalance that your body is going through from not eating enough and exercising too much. So I want you to choose to take a break, choose to pause, or even simply just choose to reduce exercise. You could theoretically exercise if you kept it to low impact, low intensity exercises. So that means Pilates, bar, yoga is definitely my favorite to recommend to clients, and then walking. But this does not mean going to a Pilates reformers class. This does not mean going to multiple bar classes in a row. This does not mean hot power yoga or walking for 20,000 steps a day. We still need to modify and reduce the total length and duration and intensity of your exercise, and also take complete and total rest days in that. So again, the gold standard is to completely pause everything, but if you cannot, I just gave you some ideas of what you could consider, and also keeping in mind keeping your heart rate below 100 if you can. And again, choose to trust your body. That once you get your period back, it's kind of like, sometimes I'll describe it to clients like you've got to earn the right. You've got to earn the right to come back to exercise. And once you get your period back and get 3 consistent periods, you enter into that wellness without obsession phase that I just described earlier. And in that, you can come back to any form of exercise that you love. If you love super intense exercise, that's awesome. We get to come back to that. But we're always going to be a lot more flexible than we were once before. We're going to take rest days. We're going to listen to our bodies. And even if we do have days where we go and exercise and go to a class, maybe we need to modify it based off of what our body is asking for us that day. Wellness without obsession means being someone who is motivated and wants to be healthy, who has the values that believes that a healthy lifestyle helps you be the best version of yourself. And it also means trust in the body and flexibility above all else, okay? One last thing I want to share, if you're struggling with this idea of taking a complete pause from exercise, or even just simply reducing your total exercise or the intensity or duration of your exercise, I want you to keep in mind, since I mentioned earlier, that it's often a coping mechanism, right? Like it is the way that you find control in your life. And if you only have one and only one coping mechanism for the stress, the anxiety, for the control that you seek in your life, it's probably time to consider more tools in your toolbox. Relying on one thing is never a good idea, because what if something happens? Let's say maybe it's not period loss, but it was an injury. What would happen if you only had one coping mechanism for the stress in your life and that was taken away from you? Inevitably, throughout your lifespans, there's going to be periods of time where you need to go without exercise. It is healthy and normal to know that that is okay and that you will come back to it, and you trust that you're going to be someone who comes back to it, because I think that's also part of it, right? You fear if you stop, you're never going to return. And that is simply just not true. And again, coming back to this idea of healthy coping mechanisms, since we don't want to only ever rely on one coping mechanism for the rest of our lives, I think this could also be such a great time to consider other hobbies and activities that you have likely neglected in your overall wellness journey. Like, could you put that time and effort that you put into exercise into skincare or getting massages or getting your nails done? And while those things feel silly and like they are a little bit more like bougie wellness activities, at the same time, if it helps fill the void, that's fine too. Maybe for you, it's getting a hobby, like becoming someone who goes to pottery classes or who volunteers your time, or maybe it's reading books. I've gotten so deep into fantasy books this year, and it's been so freaking fun. I would love to invite you to join my fantasy land of all the fantasy books I've been loving reading recently. Maybe for you, it's just becoming someone who can simply sit and watch TV with your partner, because I know that's really hard for you. As I'm wrapping up today's episode, I want to remind you, if it feels impossible, like you are unable to move forward this idea of pausing or reducing your exercise to support you getting a consistent, reliable monthly period, and to support, most importantly, your fertility and your abilities to conceive, this is really a sign that support is likely needed, and I would love to work with you inside of Period Recovery Private Coaching. Most importantly, I want you to know, above all, that you are strong enough to sit in the discomfort of changing your exercise routine. Anything that is unfamiliar to us is going to cause discomfort, but that is all that it is. It's just unfamiliar. You've always exercised every day of your life for years and years and years. You are strong enough to sit in the discomfort. And in doing so, you're going to become truly healthy. You are going to become strong physically, but also mentally too. You're also going to guarantee your ability to stay active throughout the rest of your lifespan. Yes, we're taking a period of time of a rest and pause or reduce of exercise. But over the grand scheme of your life, this is actually the very thing that is going to allow you not only to reach your goals of fertility, but also to ensure that you can stay active for the literal rest of your life. We know that hypothalamic amenorrhea has some pretty hefty consequences, and especially if you're exercising on top of period loss or period irregularities, you're only increasing the likelihood of negative impacts, especially to your bones and the stress your body is under. So know that, again, taking this period of time over the grand scheme of your life, you're going to be this active, healthy, fit person. But taking this period of time off is what's going to allow you to be that person I know you want to be, which is an active person for your entire life. Again, you're strong enough to sit in the discomfort. As Glennon Doyle always says, you can do hard things. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I'll be back as always for another episode next week. Until then, love to each of you.